Alrighty, everyone. Welcome to one more person. All right, everybody. Welcome to the afternoon session for this Envirothon webinar. I am Frank Bradley, NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service biologist for the Napa field office. We are a sub-branch of the USDA. Today we have two great presenters. One is Linnea Furlong, Napa Wildlife manager. Yeah, manager.
Yeah, I'm the wildlife rescue manager.
Yeah, of the Napa Wildlife Rescue. And then our second group will be two park rangers, General Park Ranger Joy Lamar and Todd Ager of the United States Bureau of Reclamation at Lake Berryessa. So we'll have two great presentations regarding waste and how it affects recreation, and waste and how it affects wildlife, and various topics in between as well. So, yeah, stage is all yours.
All right. Thank you all for taking a little bit of time out of your afternoon. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the more personal impacts of waste on wildlife. I know everyone's at this point probably seen like the plastic bags and the sea turtles with the straws up their noses and things like that. Here's some examples are a little more close to home. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me make sure this works. Right now you're seeing our database. I wanted to show this. All right, are we seeing a blue screen that says waste and wildlife? Yeah. Okay, yeah. Cool. All right, onward. So this is something I blatantly stole and gave credit, so it's not really stealing, it's attributing. The message of the Apple Corps from the Wildlife Center of Virginia. I haven't thought a lot about edible trash. I've been annoyed by seeing orange skins when I'm hiking because it kind of catches your eye and then you're not paying attention to everything around you. It's like, come on, pick up your litter. But something that people don't really think about, and sometimes people will toss partially edible to other animals waste out car windows, is that an apple core is a food resource to wildlife. And if it is bringing them closer to roadways, it's putting them in increased danger of being hit by cars, and also bringing them away from other food sources that might be better for them than some of the junk we toss out the window. So I really appreciate, they have it written out really elegantly there. So I encourage you to, it's in the email link. So I encourage you to look at that. But to think a little bit outside what you think of as trash, to literally anything that could be coming out of your home could be potentially considered something that wildlife could get into or could have a problem with. So let's move straight to one of our examples. I know lots of people really like Frappuccinos. I love them in the summer, but you need to be really careful with those things. Because there's so much syrup in most of them, they're really sugary. You get a situation where the bottom of the cup, which would be over here, gets glued to the top. And just chucking a whole one in, just like, even if you're being responsible and throwing the whole thing into a trash can, well, top lid is now stuck to the bottom lid. And our nice friend here, the skunk, unfortunately is really good at getting itself stuck in different things, especially when attracted to food. Skunks are scavengers. They're looking for insects, they're looking for carrion, they're looking for fallen fruit, and human waste is just another food source they're looking. So right next to that trash can, a Frappuccino cup falls out. They smell all that delicious sugar and whipped cream. They stick their head in, and because it's open wider on the inside than at the base, they can get their head stuck. So this poor skunk had the entire cup on his head. The rescuer got the other side off so he could breathe better. And then we brought him here to the center so we could take care of him. At Napa Wildlife Rescue, we care for sick, injured, and orphaned wildlife, and most of the animals we get are not here because of what people consider natural causes. Most of them are human related. We get a ton of birds that are caught by cats. We get a lot of animals hit by cars. We get animals who are orphaned because people trim their trees at the wrong time of the year or aren't paying attention about nests. And then we do get trash related injuries such as this skunk. So this skunk did survive, but it doesn't mean that the next one will, especially if they're suffocating in an old Frappuccino cup. So if you do drink Frappuccinos or shakes or anything that has this dome lid, I really encourage you to, before you throw it away or recycle it, if you rinse it out, can have the chance to rinse it out and recycle it, please take them apart because these can become a little skunk death trap. And I know not everyone likes skunks, but they are really good at picking up everything that you don't want in your yard, like slugs, snails, rotten fruit, dead mice, bugs. So all the stuff you really don't want around, they will clean that up for you as long as you don't create a hazard for them. Similar, this is not one we've had personally, but this has been a problem for years. These Yoplait yogurt cups are also a trap for wildlife, and Yoplait knows it, but they like the icon. They think it's a very catchy cup design, and so they keep you producing it. They do produce some that aren't in these cups, but you will see these cone-shaped cups, and in teeny tiny writing at the very bottom of the cup, underneath the barcode where no one's ever actually going to look, it says, "Protect wildlife, crush cup before disposal." There's been petitions for many years on, can you please get rid of this design? I don't care how good marketing it is, you're killing creatures with it. So again, since I have a chance to shout this message a little bit louder, please crush the cup before disposal so that you don't accidentally trap anyone inside. I also think these cups are annoying because it's really hard to get all of the yogurt out of them because of that little cone. So you could switch brands or crush the cup if you really like Yoplait. But that's where this image came from, just because this one is just, it's been around for years. This one was actually found by a Napa park ranger. Fishing line is another kind of trash people don't think of. You're out fishing, it gets caught, you're like, oh man, that's super annoying, I'm gonna cut it off. Please don't do that. Please, if you have a hook on the line, or even if you just have line, it's really the responsible thing to do to get as close as you can to where it got caught and take that hook back with you. Because this caught a robin. So someone was fishing, they never intended to harm this bird, but there was a worm on a hook. And guess who loves worms? Robins totally love earthworms. It's a main food source. So this guy went, saw, well, that's a weird place for a worm. Okay, I'll eat it. Ate it, and then was hanging from the hook inside his insides with the worm on it. Luckily, a Napa park ranger found it. That's why it's in the safety gear, and brought it into us. We rushed it over for emergency surgery at another wildlife center that had that capacity. But unfortunately, it didn't survive. So even when everyone tries to do the right thing, they found the bird, they cut it loose, they brought it to us. Sometimes injuries were too severe to treat it. So please, especially be careful with fishing line. It's very tight. I also see little fiber things like that sometimes get caught around the legs of baby birds, and it can cut off circulation and make their little foot fall off. And that's not a releasable bird for us, and causes huge, huge problems for seagulls and other pelicans. If you want to see every single kind of fishing line injury you can imagine, then go to International Bird Rescue's Facebook, or they probably are on Instagram too at Cross Posts. And you'll see here, patched, we fixed this gull, fishing line, we fixed this pelican, fishing line, we fixed, it's over and over and over. So there is nothing wrong with being a responsible fisher person. It's fine to get your fishing license and go fish for the right size at the right time. I'm sure all the rangers from Lake Berryessa have lots of opinions on how to correctly fish. We all can agree you've got to pick up your line or you're going to catch things you don't intend to. This was another one that this was totally unintentional. This was some bird netting. Bird netting is not something we really like to use because it becomes a problem. It's like it's that plastic mesh. People put it over some of their vegetables when they don't want birds stealing all the food they're trying to grow. But the problem is the mesh is really tight and it's really small and you get things stuck. So we often get, you get little songbirds stuck. People who do reptiles get snakes and lizards who are stuck in it. So what my recommendation would be is to switch products if you're using what's called bird fencing to something that's even cheaper and more effective, tulle. It's like that ballerina tutu fabric. It's a super fine mesh, lets light through, but doesn't let birds through, and no one's gonna get stuck in it. This was a bit of a bigger kind of bird netting, more like poultry netting. And unfortunately, they had it in an area where a fox tried to go through and then got stuck. And then as he tried to get out, he got more and more stuck and was eventually strangled by this netting. We went up to try to get him out, but we couldn't get there in time. By the time they found it to when we were able to get there, because it was way up in the north part of the county, like an hour and a half later, it was too late. I've also had animals caught in soccer nets. So while it's not traditional trash, it's better for the longevity of the net and to not catch anything other than soccer balls, to, if possible, take the soccer net down between matches, that sort of thing. Because we've also pulled them out of that kind of netting. So again, just to think of, some of these things are not necessarily what you think of, oh, that's trash. Some are, like the food containers. Fishing line people don't think of as trash necessarily, but it certainly becomes trash when you're not using it for actively fishing. But something that I really began to realize when I had a chance to study abroad, I was in Nepal, and there was no public waste service in Kathmandu. So you're walking through the trash, or people are throwing trash in the river, or people are burning trash, because at least at that point of time, about 10 years ago, there wasn't a municipal trash service. So there wasn't even the concept of a way. Everything that you generated, you had to figure out, okay, where am I putting this? What am I doing with this? So we have a little bit of a luxury here that we can think of, oh, there's an away. Well, this is a really, really interesting picture I found. This is a fascinating article. Africa's exploding plastic nightmare. What a lot of countries like the US have been doing is shipping some of our trash overseas as well as having it here. This is an island of trash. Like, this is just trash as far as you can see. Interestingly enough, there are birds all over it. So there are animals that are figuring out a way to make a use of these resources, but this is not nearly as good as a habitat would be if this wasn't a giant pile of trash. This was instead, I think there's even a river running through here, if you could find the river under the trash. But if this was an active habitat, this would be not only healthier for them, they'd have trees, they'd have other animals they could eat. It'd be healthier for the people who are stuck living next to this giant pile of trash. So what I really want to promote people, everyone's like, okay, reduce, reuse, recycle, but you don't ever think as much about the reduce. What can you not use? What kind of things can you wear again? What kind of things can you repair? So if possible, if you can avoid buying something that's just going to make another plastic cup in 10 seconds, it's a really good idea to do that. I know that's been really hard right now with the pandemic because everyone switched to like to go. So suddenly all of the food stuff that you're getting is like in single use, throw it away stuff. But anything you can do to reduce your amount of waste that you produce is going to help. If you can't reduce it, so you've got to use it, you've got to get it, you can reuse it. Some of the food containers you get are reusable. Some of them aren't, but you can compost them. Then they're also, if you can, try to repair things. Another frustrating thing with some of the waste is the more and more things we need to make, the more and more resources get taken away from things like habitat to make new things. So a lot of things are not necessarily repairable, but if you can, try to repair it. A lot of times you get a rip in your jeans. Sometimes, depending where the rips are, you can make them even more fashionable. Other times you can patch them. Some small electronics you can repair, but not all of them. But if you can fix it instead of just buying a new one, it's always a good idea. Compost is also a really great way to reuse some of our organic material, because it can go back to make new food, new resources. So if you can't reduce it, you can't reuse it anymore, it's now broken, that's the time to recycle if possible. Napa has a really awesome program called Recycle More that we use all the time at the rescue because we get a lot of old towels. But if you have clean old towels or small electronics, anything with a cord, you can have that picked up with your regular trash. You just have to send them an email and they say, yeah, put it out this day. And you can recycle more things than you thought you could. So it's really quite cool. And then at the end, appropriately throw away. There really is no away. We're all stuck on one planet. I don't know if any of you have been to the dump sort of towards American Canyon, but we're pretty much either burning or burying trash right now. So again, we're a finite planet. It doesn't really go away. So think what you can do to reduce and then go from there. So some actions you can take, especially with regards to wildlife and trash, is please call us if you find a sick, injured, orphaned, or an animal that's trapped in something. Our number is 707-224-4295 or 224-HAWK. So like 2 + 2 is 4, HAWK. You can find those letters on your phone. All our cell phones have the little letters next to them. You can never litter. Keep your food and your trash in your car and then sort it when you get home. See what you can compost, see what you can recycle. Can you reuse it? Do you have to throw it away? Again, reduce your consumption. What things could you use longer? What things are more durable? What products can you get with less plastic? I have some volunteers who have taken this even farther. We've got a couple of people that are trying to be zero waste, but there are some things you can get, laundry detergent strips. So instead of a giant plastic jug, you can get little strips and you just pop them in the wash, and then it's almost like powdered soap, but it's like a strip of soap. People are now making shampoo and conditioner bars, so you don't have to buy the water and the jug, but you can just get the soap and add your own water to it. There's other new things you can get without plastic. I'm sure you can find a million people wanting to sell you a million things that aren't plastic, but again, how many of those do you need? What can you reuse? Learn to repair and upcycle, and then recycle and compost appropriately at the end. So let me see. If it's okay to take just a couple more minutes, we're gonna go out. Is that okay? Go out, and I'm close to my time.
Perfect.
I wanted to introduce you to Odin. So Odin was hit by a car. He was by the side of the highway. So we don't know what 100% attracted him there. Was his family looking for roadkill? Did somebody throw some really delicious snacks out the window? But he got too close to the car and was hit. And so he is not visual in one eye. So he has become an education ambassador for us. So we'll go out and see what he's up to outside. I'm gonna pop my mask on because I gotta go through the rest of the facility, and we'll just hop outside. So I'm gonna stop sharing that screen. There we go. So I can just put the camera on the bird. Does anyone have any questions while I'm walking?
Yeah, if anyone has questions, either raise your hand or you could put it in the chat. Or yeah, just if you want to take yourself off mute and then put yourself back on mute afterwards, you can. Yeah, go right ahead.
Hi, I'm Jovita and I'm with Envirothon. I'm on the steering committee and I work with Frank as part of our resources advisory panel. You know, you were going over things that are recommendations for students to be involved. And I would have to add that because we're talking high schoolers, you know, they're pretty much young adults. As they mature, I just would like to add to your message that they can support and be more involved in local or statewide initiatives that support recycling, like for
gosh, yes.
electronics and composting and reuse. And in terms of reducing consumption, to build on your message, you know, some of those lettuce, those leafy green things that come in those plastic clams, you know, rinse them out and reuse them. I rinse out my Ziploc bags and my plastic bags from grocery stores, and I use it, and I use mesh bags when I go to the grocery stores. I don't have to use plastic. So I just want to add to your message.
Yeah, thank you. I totally agree. There's definitely things you can do. Well, hello. So this is, there we go. So this is Odin. One way we reuse some of our items is over here. You can see what looks like, it could be trash, but is currently being used as an enrichment item for Odin. So that that box of tea, before it gets this one is biodegradable. So before it gets composted, it became a raven toy. So we put things inside, and then he gets to shred them, and it's a great use of that giant beak. And it's fun for him because having him as an education animal, it's our responsibility to try to make his life as stimulating, as engaging as possible. So that's not a normal raven noise. That's when he makes, especially when humans are around. We're not really sure exactly what it means, but it's sort of, it seems to be sort of a pay attention to me noise. What you doing? I know, it's a computer. You've seen it before.
Yeah, so we have a question in chat. How old is Odin?
So Odin came, let's see. Odin was 20, I think he was hatched in 2019. We got him when he was a few months old. He was a fledgling when he was hit. So he is 2019, 2020, 2020, 21, 21, 22. So I think he's about 3. One thing he is a mature raven. You might see it when he opens his mouth briefly. I don't know if the resolution's good enough. But inside of his mouth is also black. When they're young, when they're born, their mouths are bright pink, like almost like Barbie pink, like super bright pink. I think it helps make an easier target for put food in here for the parents. And then they slowly get that pigmented over time. So.
What do you primarily feed Odin?
So ravens are also omnivores and scavengers. They focus mainly on meat. Also depends where they are. In Alaska, they will be eating more frozen meat stuff than maybe around here. They're also, I see them around near walnuts. I see them near some other food sources, but they're definitely going to go for some of the roadkill. He gets mice, sometimes some chick or quail. He gets nuts. He sometimes gets a little bit of cat kibble as like more as a toy. He doesn't eat much of it, but he likes to throw it around. And they do sometimes eat some of that. And then various fruits and vegetables. He likes to peck holes in pumpkins and other squash. He likes eating the seeds out of those. And in summer, crows and ravens really seem to like watermelon. It's not necessarily a food they get out of outside picnics, but it's something they really do seem to enjoy. So a little bit of everything makes up his diet, but the largest percentage is going to be whole deceased animal protein. And then I saw in the chat, how old do ravens get? I've been asked that a lot recently, and I've forgotten the answer, so I've got to Google that for you, and I can find out and leave it at the end of the next session. Where I tend to get my information when I want to know more about birds is 2 resources. One, which is the free version, is all about birds. It's from Cornell University and kind of has what it says, all about birds. And then there's a paywall one, but you might be able to get it through certain places. Birds of the World is again by Cornell, has all of the all of the known information we have at the moment about birds in extreme detail. Oh, I see. Does he have a feathered friend to hang out? Not at this point in time. Ravens are usually will pair up, so he wouldn't want a whole ton of them. He would. We have done genetic testing to find out he's a he. You can't tell from outside a raven what their sex is. So it is a he. He would probably do better with a female raven. There was another potentially education potential raven that we tried introducing him to, but he did not like that particular bird. So just like I can't throw you with anyone in your class and you also are going to be super awesome best friends with them, it's the same thing with ravens. They are very particular about who they like. However, he does have 2 wild ravens that this area is their territory, and they come and visit him almost every day and chat. So I think that's really awesome for him that he has wild friends that come and hang out. They talk to each other. He also likes talking to the crows that fly by. They're not at all like crows and ravens. You can't put them together. They have different needs. But he definitely does seem to enjoy talking to them. Is he allowed out of his pen? We don't let him free fly because of the reason we have him here is because of his eye issue. Considering that he's a scavenger and is now missing, they're very visual and is missing a significant portion of vision. We're concerned about him being hit by a car. Initially, our plan had been to take him into classrooms. So we'll have to see how that goes. He does very well with glove training, but he does not want to go into a kennel. We've been working on that for a while. And so we might need to change some things about the kennel, about how we're asking. But at the moment, he doesn't usually go out of the pen except for like a vet checkup or something like that. We are, however, this is a smaller than we would like it to be for him. We were at a previous site and this was all this, we built him the biggest one we could with the space we had. And so we raised funds recently to build him one twice as big. So we'll give him as much space as we can. So I think I'm probably getting near the end of my time. Like I'm over my time by like 5. So.
I did fine, just a couple minutes. No big deal. It's always great to see animals like this, especially for educational purpose. Like to get another second lease on life, pretty much, which is
awesome. It's really interesting. It's really they have to be a special animal in that we don't want to keep animals that are terrified of humans. He was very young, so we felt he could become comfortable with us. Oh, you're gonna preen your foot. Preen foot. But if he had been an adult raven with the same injury, we would not consider him for education unless unless there are some pretty extreme weird circumstances, because we want them to feel as comfortable around us as we do around them. We don't want them thinking we're just like trying to hang out to eat them. And then I guess the last thing I just wanted to mention is if you need something to do this summer, we do take volunteers. You can be 16 or older to volunteer on your own. There's only certain species you can work with. You wouldn't be able to work with ravens until you're 18 because of a bunch of federal laws, but you would be able to work with some other species, help prep diets, clean enclosures. We get a lot of orphans in the summer, so lots of baby animals. While you're not cuddling, you can still learn a lot about them and see what they do. So if you're interested in that, we are doing a volunteer orientation next week. If you just go to our website, there's a contact form. Say, I want to volunteer, and I'll send you the Zoom link. So you can find out if that's something you might want to do this summer, because summer's when we're really busy and need more help.
Yeah, it's definitely great to mention how to get involved, for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Bye,
Yeah,
Odin.
no problem. Thank you so much as well. And we'll have another little Q&A session shortly after the second presentation.
Sounds good. See you later, Bird.
Yep. Thank you very much. We will
Right,
we will be transitioning to our second presentation right now. right. Can everyone see my presentation, the black background one?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. Play video. Play.
Hello, my name is Joy Lamar. I'm a ranger at Lake Berryessa. Thank you for attending our presentation today, and especially thank you for participating in this year's Envirothon. I'm going to go through some of the information about Lake Berryessa and the waste and its effect upon our environment, and afterwards we'll have a little bit of time to do some questions. Now, Lake Berryessa is managed by the Bureau of Reclamation. The National Park Service is one of our sister agencies. Reclamation's mission is to distribute water in a both ecologically and an economic sound manner throughout the Western United States. In fact, half of the water that is distributed in the western part of the US goes through a reclamation process. We distribute, sell water to ranches and farmlands in the area, to the cities of Fairfield, Vacaville, Vallejo, and to industrial concerns like Budweiser and Jelly Belly. So distributing water is our primary mission. Recreation is secondary to us. Lake Berryessa is a man-made reservoir created when the Monticello Dam was built in 1963 to 1967. Even before it was built, people were boating and fishing using old access roads to launch their boats. When the people came, they also brought their trash and waste, and which most people then neglected to collect and take home with them. Resorts with marinas and camping developed, making this a popular destination for many people from San Francisco to Sacramento. So let's agree that waste is defined as having no further use by the original owner. When preparing this presentation, we started to look at waste at the lake. Given our definition, we decided that there are two kinds of waste, human and non-human. Let's look at the non-human waste first. Snake skin, acorn shells, abandoned nests, the charred remains of a wildfire, and scat are all bio-waste, i.e. having no further use for their original owner. But all of this is integrated within the environment. Almost everything ends up as detritus, which provides essential habitat and nutrition for the most basic creatures. This is a Lake Berryessa resort we will visit. For years, families have come here to play, swim, picnics, hike, fishing, and water sports. Especially
Is the audio going for anyone?
No, it stopped.
events like company picnics,
Oh, there we go.
runs, paragliding, fishing tournaments, and even weddings continue to happen here every year. And this is the Berryessa you may visit, especially during the summer. Chicken bones, dirty diapers, floaties, single-use water bottles, joint courses with corn cobs, cardboard boxes, beer and wine, barbecues, lawn chairs, and anything else you can imagine. Now, there's some obvious effects of waste on the environment, on wildlife, and the visiting public. Well, let's take a look at Berryessa's wildlife. On any given day, you can see squirrels and coyote, bobcat, fox, and otter at Lake Berryessa. Golden-bowed eagles, red-tailed hawks, osprey, ravens, numerous songbirds are some of what you also may see. And of course, our beloved Canada geese will greet you throughout the park. Our litter becomes an abundant food source for much of our wildlife. Some of the effects include dependency on humans and overpopulation. Our food may cause nutritional and digestive deficiencies. Trash in the lake provides hazards to wildlife and humans alike. At the lake, we've seen some pretty gross things. Let's take an example. By feeding the geese, they become dependent on humans. Our food affects their digestive health, as evidenced by their scat. But there's even more. More food creates overpopulation. In this case, fishing line became entangled around the goose's feet, causing them to be amputated. Trash really can be a great hazard to our wildlife. There's an economic effect too. Loads and loads of trash take people to clean up, like me, taking away resources from other duties like giving talks, helping people with their lost keys, manning the visitor center, helping first responders, and reporting hazards. Not only do you, the taxpayer, have to pay for staff to get rid of the waste, but also for the dumpsters to store it and the cost of the truck to haul it away. This is not just about the money. This is about the eco-environment too. The amount of unnecessary expense financially and ecologically is innumerable. There's an emotional effect that waste has at Lake Berryessa. This is a fun place, a place to play in the clear water on hot days. But not so much when you are greeted by scattered litter or injured wildlife. Another effect of waste is social. Getting out in nature is a way for people to relax, rejuvenate, refresh, and reset. If people stop coming to the lake because it's dirty, everyone misses out on a chance to have fun, especially with family and friends. Well, we've talked about waste and its effects at the lake. The number one thing you can do to stop some of the human waste at Lake Berryessa is to take it home with you. Pack it in and pack it out is not just for hikers and backpackers. You just saw pictures of trash, and trash. Can you imagine how much smaller the carbon footprint of visitors would be? Bring in a garbage bag, or we'll give you one, and take it home with you. You can also help our wildlife survive the popular summer season by not feeding them food. Hand feeding geese and squirrels may be fun, but our food and trash is really bad for them. Wildlife is opportunistic. They will go to great lengths to get to yummy trash treats. If you see that someone has left their trash, pick it up and put it in one of the dumpsters and close the lid. Think about how you're helping our planet, one candy wrapper or one water bottle at a time. There are other things you can do to stop or slow down some of the effects of human waste at Berryessa. You can volunteer for events like California Coastal Cleanup in September. You can join one of our project groups and survey birds or maintain the trails or even map the trails. You can plant wildflower seeds or attend a program where you can learn more about our resource. Or you could work for us as a natural resource intern or a seasonal ranger. You'd get paid for personally and directly involving yourself in making this an even more sustainable place. Well, let's go through what you can do. You can take your trash home with you. You can safeguard our wildlife by putting other people's trash in the dumpsters. You can join groups to support us and our mission, and you can work for us. That would help the whole environment on a very local level. Have you heard of the saying, think globally, act locally? That's what this presentation is all about. Personally, become a steward of your community. Personally, take a step forward in resolving our climate crisis. Personally, take home your trash. And personally, create and advocate for a sustainable future. We hope you've enjoyed our presentation and will visit us at Lake Berryessa soon. We have time now for questions.
Hi there, I'm Joy Lamar, and we put that together not knowing what the sound quality would be. So I apologize for that being a little bit difficult. We have some question and answer time if you'd like to ask me and my coworker Todd. Todd, come and show them who you are. Todd's actually our expert, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of back off and let him answer questions for you.
I have a question. This is Jovita, and I'm with Envirothon. What have you observed in terms of impacts of trash and other litter on your aquatic ecosystem?
Well, that's a good question. I've observed a lot of different birds and animals have with things like mylar fishing line tied around their legs and feet. We've seen fishing hooks in the sides of birds that have been feeding on the side of the lake. We've also seen increases in the aggressiveness of the geese around the lake. They tend to go towards the picnickers instead of away from them because they're used to them feeding them different foods. Most of the time, the picnickers on the lake, they have things like hamburgers and a lot of grains with the buns and things. Those buns tend to cause respiratory problems as well as overcrowding because the birds say free food and they don't want to come around the free food. So there's that major impact on the wildlife there. Also there's a greater impact as more and more of the trash accumulates in the lake. It actually physically will decrease the volume of the lake. So there's that as well. It'll collect through the mild current in lower parts of the lake and then reduce the volume of water that's there too, and decrease a little bit of the value of the quality of the water as well.
But my question is, have you seen direct impacts to the fisheries of Lake Berryessa?
The fishery impact is mainly due to the runoff from the lake, from the mine up above the lake. So we've got a lot of the mercury impact there, which has decreased the amount of fish that people can actually eat from the lake. The fisheries themselves, the fish themselves, they get caught up in some of the lines and some of the trash that has been dropped off there. But it's more of an impact on the birds and the other animals that feed along the shoreline as opposed to the fish themselves. Although I have seen things like the crayfish that live in the lake getting caught in old discarded bottles. When we do our coast cleanup, we hire these divers to go down and pick up some of the debris from the bottom of the lake. And you'll see crayfish getting stuck in bottles and things like that. And small fish get stuck inside the bottlenecks of different discarded beer bottles and things.
Thank you.
I have a question. So when you're choosing a coastal cleanup, is there a defining factor when you're deciding on a location, whether you guys see the amount of trash or you guys see the amount of effects or the effects it has on wildlife? Is there like a certain criteria then your organization goes for a coastal cleanup?
Yes, there is actually. My partner, Ranger Joy, she'd like to answer this question directly.
So one of the things that we have here are alliances with our concessions. And because our focus is on the distribution of water in the West, it is secondary as a part of recreation. And I don't hear a whole lot of that being about particularly a focus on cleaning things up. So with California Coastal cleanup, we do have kind of set points that we go through and assist, like Steel Canyon or Markley or Pleasure Cove. Either of those, we kind of put our crews out there where we believe the most trash to be, and it's sometimes pretty old trash. You know, it will decrease and increase with the water level, what is actually visible. Does that answer your question?
Yes, I guess it does. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
You know, one thing I'd like to just speak to are the many different effects. And we can talk about the environmental effects to it, or even financial, but there is an emotional effect. And that is when people arrive at the lake and it's all mucky water and there's trash everywhere. They don't have a good feeling about being there. And that probably then increases more and more the amount of waste that they leave or create either way. So I just like to focus that in people, this is a place to enjoy. And if they can't enjoy it, then we're not doing our job. And also social effects too. Sometimes these things are missed as far as looking at the effects of waste or litter on an environment, that we have a tendency maybe to get past that or not consider, I meant to say not consider those things.
I have a question again. This is Jovita. What kind of outreach and education do you do with your visitors to control, prevent, abate this kind of littering and trashing the lake?
Yeah, well, one thing we do is a lot of foot patrol, bike patrol, even kayak patrol. The maintenance guys are out on their gators. We have a big stack of trash bags, different sizes, even different colors for people to use. Sometimes they have some sort of a message, maybe a safety message, water safety message. And in talking with people, establishing rapport with them, it is also the kind of rapport that's going to say, you know, this is a nice place, pick it up. And we do say that out loud in English to people too, while handing them a trash bag, if we see that they're being maybe a little, I don't know, negligent with it or oppositional even with it. So that's
irresponsible.
Irresponsible, that's good. That's one thing. So it's public outreach on site here and now. And we do now with COVID diminishing, we are picking up our public events to be able to say, you know, this is what we have for you. Even encouraging, when we have school groups come, we encourage that future stewardship. And that would be in, you know, picking up other people's trash too.
So I just want to have a follow-up. So have you seen improvements in terms of the reduction of people just leaving their trash and they're being more responsible about packing it up into a trash bag and putting it in their car and taking it home?
Yes, we have actually seen a little bit of the reduction. A lot of the coast cleanup sites that we use and the World Environment sites that we use are the same sites that we use for year after year. And they have collected debris and trash from those sites for at least the past 8 or 9 years. So by going back to the same site, we've noticed that there's been less and less trash in that particular site. So the messages do seem to be getting out to people. The message I like to encourage people when they're partying over here is to bring things that are reusable as opposed to disposable. It seems to be a harder message to get through to bring your own trash back out with you than to encourage people to use things reusable, like bring say a plastic or a pottery plate instead of a paper plate or a disposable styrofoam plate, or bring maybe a hard plastic cup that you can reuse again, as opposed to the disposable solo cups. And that seems to help to some degree as well. and it's then you get mostly just a little bit of, say, the food debris, as opposed to the plastics and the recyclables that cannot degrade as easily into the environment. And but we went from, you know, anywhere from a truckload of an 8 foot by 8 foot bed truckload of trash bags on a coast cleanup day to a down to, say, a half a bag at the last coast cleanup at the same sites. I mean, half a truckload of those at the same site last year, from just in the past, you know, 5 or 6 years. Our friends with RCD has the Resource Conservation District has also helped with a lot of the message about tidy disposal of things and keeping oils out of the lake and keeping a clean lake, and that has helped also.
That's so great. Thank you.
I have a question. What's some of the most unexpected trash you guys have found there?
Unexpected trash. A marker for a military captain that had passed away. You know, when an officer dies in service or a service member dies, they give you a plaque that a lot of people will put on top of their grave marker. But yeah, somebody had just tossed that over the bridge, and then so when the lake was low, there it was, you know. Different, like the refrigerators or, you know, air conditioners. Heck, I even found a hydraulic drill bit that was left over from when they were blasting the rock to make the dam to form the reservoir. So those were a couple of unusual things. But by the more common things, would probably the most common would be the Corona bottles, and of course Budweiser. You know, it's kind of like a closed cycle. People, the water comes from here, goes down to the Budweiser plant. People buy the Budweiser, bring it back up.
Do you think it would be feasible to start a compost at the lake where people could put some of their like specific food waste?
That is something we've been toying with, especially for the dorm residents, but we've never expanded that quite to a larger scale in the park itself, and that's actually a really good idea. We have tried the separation of recyclables from trash by using magnets to indicate what's recyclable and what's not. And we've had kind of limited success between the recycling and the trash, even with using pictures instead of words to kind of indicate to the public that does not speak English that, hey, yeah, let's try to put recyclables in the blue cans and the brown cans with the trash. It tends to get mixed up still, but it would be something to explore, how to make a composting there out in the park and make it actually work, work properly and encourage people to actually use it. I think in general, but my feelings with the public is that it has to be very, very simple and very clear. Otherwise, they tend to just mix it all together, especially when a great deal of our visitors are under the influence of alcohol, and so not quite thinking as much by the time they come to the ends of their day.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
I have another question. I'm not sure if you mentioned this earlier, but is there any like legal consequences if you caught somebody littering?
Oh, household litter.
Yes, there is actually, and we've been working with the sheriff's department for a lot of this. It's especially been a focus with household litter. A lot of our neighbors around tend to drop their household trash off into the park, and we've been working with the local sheriff's department to go through see if we could find anything that would identify where that particular trash had come from. And then the sheriff department would pay them a visit and let them know about that. There is the littering fine that I believe it's a $5,000 fine for littering that folks that the California State Highways has initiated. It's really hard when you are in a busy park to figure out what litter is from what particular person, which causes oh, that just blew over from so-and-so next door. Oh, I never had that kind of thing. So unless you actually see them tossing it on the ground, it's really difficult to track down who did what.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, thank you. But have you seen it take into effect though? Like, have you actually charged
Yes.
someone?
Yes, actually we have. There was one person that had dropped, maybe 4 or 5 bags of household trash. We were able to find a name and an address of who was dropping that trash in the park and who was just throwing it in the park. We turned that address over to the sheriff's department, who actually went to their house and made contact with them about it.
Oh, great.
It's overall, it's the smaller victories sometimes that spread what because that person's now going to tell his friends and then his friends, and then hopefully eventually there'll be the stop of the dropping of the household trash at least. And a lot of times, if I'm walking around the lake and I happen to see somebody, dropping a beer can or something like that, I will, ask them to pick it up, or maybe offer them a bag to pick it up, and then they usually will feel obligated to clean up the rest of the trash around their sites when I see that. So it kind of works, especially if they have their family members around them.
Thanks for answering my questions.
You mentioned the $5,000 fine, and how often does it get escalated to that point, or is that simply more as like a deterrent?
That's I think it mostly is as a deterrent. I have heard of CHP officers who have seen people, tossing various items outside the windows of their cars and, pulling them over for that. They usually use that as a secondary thing to, they'll check for say DUIs, and then they'll use that as another thing to add to it from my contacts with the sheriff's department. There was a time which I observed a gentleman tossing a beer can out the window of his car as he was leaving the park. And when the sheriff caught up with him, they added that to the DUI, which he had for drinking beer and starting to get in the car and drive away. So it's more I don't see many of the sheriff's department or the CHP actually pulling people over specifically for littering. It's or talking to them, or, giving them a fine for littering, but it's more of a thing that they could use to observe other violations and possibly add to other violations.
Thank you.
I have a question. Have you guys seen a lot of like leftover bait for like fishing and stuff like that? And have you guys seen any effects of that around Lake Berryessa?
Yeah, as far as the leftover bait and fishing, we do see that. We do see that quite a bit. We'll see styrofoam buckets for the night crawlers, and we'll see baited hooks. And a lot of times the wildlife, especially the birds, like the Canada geese that we have around here, will have hooks caught in the side of their mouth, or you'll see a fox with a hook in his foot, and it'll have or the side of his teeth, from where he's tried to pick up some of the bait, because the bait usually has a very strong odor, which attracts, of course, the mammals to it. And it just looks like a piece of food to the birds. And I can't tell you how many geese that I've actually caught and had to remove the hooks, and found little pieces of bait in the corner on the hooks. So yeah, bait is a big thing, and especially if you compound it with the hooks, then we've got a real problem with that.
All right, we have another question from Alec Lamb.
Hi, I'm not sure if you guys have any data on this, but have you seen direct consequences of alcohol pollution in the water? Like sometimes you said earlier that most of the trash left behind is like Corona bottles or there's another brand, but do you ever see that leak into the lake and see its effects, or is it just the trash that's the major problem?
Well, the trash itself is a big part, because the bottles themselves, cause the injuries to the feet of both wildlife and to humans that are trying to recreate at the park. Plus, all the bottles do take up a certain volume, displace water, and actually work kind of like a landfill does, where the valley fills up, so you have less water to distribute to people, and more trash on the bottom there. But the extra chemicals from the drinks and the beverages and all the different trash that you put into the reservoir, that also affects the quality of the water, and creates more pollution in the water and a lower quality. We have done studies through biological indicators with the kids, where we had taken different invertebrates that live in the water, and saw how many of the invertebrates that were sensitive to pollution versus invertebrates that were tolerant to pollution. And through those studies, over the past 10 years, we still do have the sensitive species here, so it hasn't affected the quality too much. However, every little bit makes it that much more difficult for the water treatment facilities to clean it. In the Lake Solano, which is below, is still part of the Solano project. So Lake Berryessa is the top part of the Solano project. And then once it goes through Monticello Dam, there's a secondary dam at Lake Solano where they actually draw the water that's stored at Lake Berryessa to use for the cities of Vacaville and Fairfield. They had a creek which ran into there, and people had put a lot of chemicals and pesticides on the hillside over there, took out all the trees on the side of the creek, and so you got a big storm, and it did just I think what you're hinting at, and it caused the water quality going into the pumping station for the water treatment facility to not be able to use that water for a while until they could get the particulates in there enough so they can actually treat it. So it does cause it, the chemicals from your food bottles and breaking down of different materials does cause an impact on the water quality.
If you would allow me, this is Jovita, and I know we're running over time, but because, I'm with Envirothon and I am working on a webinar about water projects and salmon. Can you or Joy let me know that when these dams were constructed, the Monticello Dam, do you know what the impacts were to historic salmon Chinook runs in that region of Northern California?
I do know that there was a historic salmon run that did come up the Puda Creek, which is the main creek that feeds through the dams. And in recent years, they have restored part of the salmon run up to as far as the town of Winters. I'm not sure exactly how historical, if the fish actually went clear into the Berryessa Valley or how far up they came, but they do have a historic run that goes up to about the town of Winters, and that's on the same creek system that comes from the reservoir. And but I don't have very much data on how much farther up the salmons went originally.
Thank you. I should know about Puda. We fly fished in that area. Thank you for that information. That's very helpful.
Yeah, so every year up until COVID, we did a little salmon festival down in the town of Winters to celebrate the return of the salmon when they would lower the inflatable dam down by the Yolo bypass, and the salmon would come up, and sometimes you would see them actually in the creek right by the railroad park in the town of Winters.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone else have any questions? Any further questions? All right, if no one else has any questions, I'm gonna stop the recording and end this afternoon's webinar. I'll just like say thank you for coming to this afternoon's webinar and have a great rest of your weekend. And yeah, just have a great weekend, and should be a beautiful weekend in California. So take care and have a good one, folks.
Thank you too, Frank. Bye-bye.
Yep, thank you.
Bye, Frank.
Bye, thank you.